Rishi Sunak, before entering Downing Street yesterday, pledged to govern with integrity, professionalism and accountability. How can you square that with the reappointment of Suella Braverman?
Well, Suella made a mistake. She has said herself that she made a mistake. She's apologised for that mistake, and she stood down at the time. But ultimately, she has, I think, got very, very clear ideas about how we improve the performance of the Home Office, both in terms of border control, policing, how we make sure we crack down on crime. She's very passionate about that, got a very clear agenda for that, and it's clear that the Prime Minister wanted to see that delivered.
This was no minor mistake. She was sacked on the advice of the Cabinet Secretary after not just sharing from her personal email, but for pre-releasing details of a ministerial statement. So I'll ask it again. When Rishi Sunak talks about displaying integrity, professionalism and accountability in government, you're not telling me that she's the best person for the job, given she was sacked for not being very good at it a handful of days ago.
Well, look, she has said that she made an error. She has apologised for that, and the Prime Minister has clearly taken the apology at in the manner that she wanted to put across. She has shown a willingness to take responsibility for what happened, but ultimately he has decided that he wants to see the agenda that she has set out, that very important crime-fighting agenda, back in the heart of government.
She is back in Cabinet, isn't she? Because she provided her endorsement for Rishi Sunak ahead of him becoming Prime Minister. That's the simple truth of this, isn't it?
Well, if you look at the parliamentary numbers, it was clear, and clear really very, very early on, that Rishi was going to have the majority, and as it went on to be clear, the overwhelming majority of the support of the parliamentary party. Frankly, I don't think he needed the endorsement of any one MP.
That is one way to look at it.
Yeah, well, it's the way to look at it because the numbers speak for themselves. He had a clear lead.
She gets sacked for a significant security breach. She meets with Rishi Sunak. She provides her endorsement for Rishi Sunak. She finds herself back in Cabinet in 6 days. Genuinely, people will be watching this, screaming at the television at the idea that their intelligence is being insulted by the fact that she was returned to Cabinet on the basis of her strengths rather than on the basis of the endorsement. I mean, even if it didn't take place, that's what it looks like.
Well, look, I can't control people's perception of events, but I can see. What I saw is that Rishi didn't basically need any endorsements, and actually, look, my appointment showed I supported someone else. Now, I know Rishi is an incredibly smart politician. He was an incredibly experienced Chancellor and has got a very clear understanding of what we need to do to get the British economy in the place where we want it to be. Now, but I endorsed someone else. Nevertheless, he asked me to stay in my position. The simple truth of the matter is he didn't need any particular endorsements because it was so clear that the parliamentary party wanted him at the helm.
There will be people, however, then, even if they take that at face value, who question the integrity, the probity of a new Prime Minister who returns someone to one of the great offices of state, let's not forget, a handful of days after she was sacked from it. I mean, is there that much of a lack of talent in Conservative ranks these days that Suella Braverman is truly the only person who can do the job?
Well, look,
that's what it looks like.
Well, you want to be critical of us politicians, and of course that is an important part of the function of scrutiny. But the simple fact of the matter is Suella has a very, very clear idea and set out a very clear agenda about getting control of our borders, which is incredibly important, cracking down on crime, which is incredibly important. She made an error. She apologised for that, and it's clear that the commitment that she's made to crack down on crime is an important one for all of us, and that's why the Prime Minister appointed her.
But does this mean that Rishi Sunak will be appointing an ethics advisor? I mean, presumably not.
Well, ultimately, an ethics advisor, people keep using this as if it's some kind of, foundation stone of government.
I suspect they have something to say about the reappointment of Suella Braverman.
Well, the point is we have a system, Cabinet Secretary, there is a whole system in terms of propriety and ethics within government, and having one additional person in what is already a multi-individual function, I'm not convinced is the golden bullet or the silver bullet rather, that some people suggested.
Let's talk about the biggest pressing issue facing the country at the moment, the cost of living crisis.
Sure, yeah.
We had been led to believe that we would be getting a statement from the Chancellor on Halloween. Reports this morning that it could be delayed. What's your understanding of where we are?
Well, I haven't had specific confirmation of dates, but obviously just yesterday we had a new Prime Minister. He's going through the appointment of his government. He, of course, will want to take some time to work on the detail of that. He's been Chancellor. He will, of course, have a very good understanding of the figures. He'll be working closely with Jeremy in terms of the production of that.
Sounds like you're suggesting it might.
But we know it needs to come soon. We know
Sure.
people want certainty. We know people want a clear idea of the government's plans. Whether it happens exactly on that date, I'm not able to confirm at the moment.
What is your understanding then of the joint approach, the joint Sunak-Hunt approach, and all of this? I mean, listening to the Prime Minister yesterday on outside Number 10, I'll admit to being a little confused. I mean, this is what he said. He was talking about giving us a stronger NHS, better schools, safer streets, control of our borders, protecting our environment, supporting our armed forces. I mean, all of that surely requires real-term spending increases, which is the one thing we're not going to be getting.
Well, so I think it's really important that we
improving our schools.
Yeah, so good government cannot just be about spending lots more money. We have to make sure that those public services, the public services on which we all rely, work effectively, efficiently, and are very, very delivery focused. But we can't just keep giving, above inflation spending increases. The maths just precludes that from happening. So yes, we have to make sure that we keep a close eye on public expenditure, but also what we've got to do is make sure we keep a close eye on being very, very delivery focused. They are not mutually exclusive.
Sure, but when Jeremy Hunt talks about making very, very difficult decisions, we all know what that is code for, and it is cuts to public spending. I mean, we heard again from the Prime Minister yesterday that he feels that there is a mandate that flows from the 2019 manifesto and election. The one thing that anyone who voted Conservative back in 2019 did not vote for was austerity.
Well, we've got to remember that between the 2019 election and now, we have had the furlough scheme. We have spent billions, hundreds of billions of pounds, keeping people's families together economically, keeping people in their jobs, making sure businesses don't go under. So we have had a massive, massive, massive increase in public spending already. And we can't just pretend that away. Those challenges challenges were then made worse by the economic implications of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. So we can't just pretend that expenditure has not happened. We will continue to support people who we know are struggling economically, people who we know are worried about the future. And we will, of course, support them, but we can't just pretend that massive amount of public expenditure hasn't already happened.
I think I know the answer to this question, but it strikes me that if you wanted to put forwards, a package of public spending cuts, one thing you need is a mandate. Given that the mandate was not provided by the 2019 manifesto, why shouldn't there be a general election now, barring the fact that the Conservative Party, going by the polling, would be wiped out?
Because you always have to make dynamic decisions in government. You can't set out a manifesto and assume that nothing significant is going to happen over the 4 or 5 years of a
there will
parliament.
be tax rises. There'll be no public spending cuts. There will be public
spending.
So
there was no global pandemic.
Sure.
In the 2019 manifesto. There was no invasion of Ukraine in the 2019 manifesto.
Fracking wasn't in the manifesto.
We have got to respond to the world as we find it, not the one we wish it to be. And there have been two huge global events, and they are affecting countries right across the world. I was on the phone yesterday to my opposite numbers across the globe, and we are all facing these difficulties, and we all have to deal with it.
But as Rishi Sunak admitted yesterday, before he entered Number 10, mistakes were made, and mistakes were made by the Conservative government, which exacerbated the financial situation. I do just want to conclude on one thing, though, and you mentioned it en passant earlier, that you did support someone else, that you supported Boris Johnson. I have to ask, you must have received some assurances that he was going to stand. When he announced that he was not, how did that make you feel? I mean, he hung Nadeem Zahawi out to dry.
Well, we could see that the support that he was getting was around the 100 mark. That was enough for him to stand. His intention, the conversations I had with him, his intention was to stand.
Come on, don't tell me you weren't a bit annoyed.
Well, look, I was disappointed he didn't put himself forward, but ultimately it was becoming clear, even on the Sunday Monday, it was becoming increasingly clear that the parliamentary party overwhelmingly wanted to see Rishi Sunak at the helm. We absolutely respect that. Rishi is, as I say, an experienced, thoughtful and energetic politician. I'm very, very happy to serve in his government.
James Cleverly, good to see you. We'll let you crack on a busy day. Thanks very much.